My name is Mohammed Khalil. I have starting from like market research, quantitative research, and also from initial marketing to growth.
My name is Rakesh. I am working as a software engineer in a company called Prosa.
I'm Manish. I work as a software developer in Coach.
Good morning. My name is Satish. I am the CTO at Ladam. We are in the lending space. We do micro loans.
Hi, I'm Anand. I do with Hi, I'm Surya. I'm a college student of CSC.
Hi, I'm Bharat. I'm a part of a startup called OIC. I'm a full stack JS developer there. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Praveen English. I'm working as a web performance engineer at
Hi, this is Dinakar. I am working in IT services.
Hi, my name is David. I work as a lead engineer for Google.
Hi, I am Ram. I am from Gartner Chennai.
This is Ramesh. I'm working as a technical director in one of the subcontractor. It is located in the same building.
Hi everyone, this is Puranesh from Siam Company. It's a startup company. I'm working as a CTO there.
I'm Sarvana. I am a founder and CEO of a company called Figo.
Hello everyone, this is Arun. I'm a project manager in a company called EC Group in Ananagar. This is my third event that I'm attending. I'm really interested in all these events. Thank you.
Hi, I am Vishwanath, lead creative technologies working in Medbaker.
Hi everyone, this is Anand Kumar. I am as a lead creative technologist at Medbaker.
Hi, this is Sadhguru, mobile application developer at Cognizant.
Hi, I'm Ashwin. I'm the founder of ShipsPlay.in. So that is an e-commerce and supply chain company for marine and offshore sector.
Hello, I'm Murugan. I'm co-founder of Zapport and Knowledge, offline retail store aggregator and online courses aggregator.
Hi, I'm Yogesh. I work for Anpital as a software developer.
Hi everyone, my name is Ram Kumar, Chief Product Officer of Link Logistics. So Link is a last mile truck booking platform based out of Chennai. The first time attending this event, so looking forward to it.
Hi, I'm Bharat. I'm IT manager of IndiaProperty.com. IT manager of IndiaProperty.com. It's an online portal where you buy, sell, and properties. We are based in Delhi.
Hi, I am Arun, CTO of Gooby. We teach technology in native language. We are a learning platform.
Hi, Pardon here from here. We run a health tech startup called Mazero Health Solutions. Happy to be here. First event over here.
Hello everyone, I am Shanmugam. I am working as a usability architect in a large IT services company.
Good morning everyone, my name is Vardharajan. I'm a manager at a company called Venture Intelligence. We help private equity funds and venture capital funds track the investment space in India. So for startups, if you come to us, you'll be able to identify the best funds. So typically, companies are facing the wrong funds. So what we do is we help you identify the best fund that you should be taking. So that's one of the stuff that.
Hi all, Karthik here. I'm excited to be a field entrepreneur. I'm on a break at the moment, trying to figure out what's the next thing that I can jump onto to probably experience more failures before I see some success. So yeah, that's me. Thanks.
There are a lot of our employees are sad in the back. I don't want to go through that. Some new people, yeah.
Hello.
I am Rajesh. I am CEO for Redreach. It's a healthcare portal, Redreach.
Can you just pass the mic around?
Hi, Rajesh. I'd like to explore what a startup. I work in AWS business. I started a company like shifted to some.
Hi, Vikkantal for Cognizant. I'm an architect on Microsoft Stack. This is my first CTO talk meetup. Looking forward to see really much from us.
Some more
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. Hi.
I'm Hari Shankar. I work at CaratLane.
Hi. You're a customer,
Hi, I'm Revati from CaratLane, working as a software engineer. This is my first time at CTO Talk. I'm really excited.
Hi everybody, I'm Srinivasan. I'm a corporate trainer.
Misa kar rahe
I'm Praveen Shekhar, CEO of Kriya, Guerrilla Marketer. A big fan of Suresh and whatever he does. I'm here because I'm in the process of investing into a tech firm that develops micro products. So that's the background why I'm here.
Hi, my name is Vishwa. I'm the co-founder of a company called Mango Apps. We essentially build enterprise software that helps employees work, be more engaged, collaborate more, be more productive, and so on and so forth.
Hi, my name is Aditya. I work for Intellect Design Arena as a pre-sales consultant.
So that can get started.
Good morning. Welcome to the third edition of CTO Talk. We are thrilled by the overwhelming response and participation today. Today we also have a live audience joining in from Madurai and Coimbatore. We are very keen to interact with Vibhor Sharma and learn. So on behalf of Audienscape, I'd like to welcome Vibhor Sharma, who is our guest speaker for the day. Vibhor is an autodidact, a self-taught person, a creative technology leader with a knack for building products that consumers use. Having spent 18 years in the internet industry, he's gained significant ability to understand technologies in the space and their impact on platforms, markets, and customers. He's built and scaled multiple internet products and platforms. He's the group CTO for Info Edge India Limited, which has businesses such as Naukri, 99 Acres, and Jeevan Sathi in its basket, among others. So, over to you, Vibhor.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Stoked to be here, and thank you for making it on a Saturday morning. I hope it is worth your time. What I'm going to talk about is, the journey we've had at Info Edge, specifically in Naukri, because that's what we started off with as a company. And I'm going to talk about what happened through the tech lens, and not just the business paradigm. Most of us know Naukri as a company which has evolved in the jobs market space. I'm going to give you a glimpse of what happened while we were building it, how we built it from a tech perspective. About me, I like to solve problems essentially. I've been in the industry for about 18 years, but I've been working for about 26 years. I'm not that old. I basically started working right out of school, didn't go to college. And I did a myriad of things, selling pharmaceuticals, spare parts for engineering goods. I was a journalist for a brief while. I worked in a production house, for television sometime, export house, but I don't even remember it was that bad. So stuff like I basically followed a process of elimination until I found my younger brother working in computers, and he would come back home with this 1.44 MB floppy drive, and I was pretty intrigued by what that is, and I would ask him, and he would say, "Oh, it's just a big size calculator," That was his way of getting back to me. So I thought, let me figure this out. And that's what I started doing. I started figuring out, joined the course, which promised me they would teach me C++ and Java. I was so gullible, I believed them. And in 4 days they said, you now know C++. And it was a mess because, I had quit my job, put in all my savings and everything else for a 6-month course. And I basically knew a little better than anybody who did not know about computers, but I did not know as good as somebody who knew computers. So then they hired me as a faculty back there, which is So, but I did that because it helped me get near to a computer. I could not afford to buy a computer, so I would just stick about and in between classes, use the machines there, had friends with the lab guy, and he would let me work until late in the night. So actually, I learned while teaching. Did a bit of projects here and there. Did not find a job again because, I was not an engineer. Went back to sales, and then figured my way out into doing programming because there were programmers who were not able to program, but I was working back then, and I used to help them out in the night. And the CTO found out, and he said, why don't you start coding as well? So I did that. And then I joined Naukri, not for Naukri, but something else. Right? They would start off as a different company for IT years. But then I started helping out here, and then came in mainstream. So it's an accidental career for me, so to speak. Quickly about the company. Most of us know about company through Naukri, but we have 4 main business. We're into the matchmaking scheme of things. I'm sure all of you have heard about Jeevansathi, right? 99 Acres is a real estate portal. Shiksha is an online classifieds for education. We are also investors in companies like Zomato, Policybazaar, Meditation, and Pusta. The stakes that we have come down significantly for various reasons, but we are nevertheless very actively involved in these organizations. Just the last 6 years, although the story has been like that for the last 16 years or so, the company has been making decent revenues year on year, despite challenging environments, competition, so on and so forth. Right? Has remained profitable. The green line comes from improvement, which is Naukri, essentially. The red ones are areas where we spend money so that the businesses can turn profitable at some point in time. Most of the money that we earned from Naukri has been invested, which is only 14% bought. Over the years, I think, so roughly the amount of money we have is about little over 2,000 crores, in the bank by virtue of Naukri being done successfully. Some key numbers: 72% market share, traffic share now. Essentially, the competition now is not with job boards, but with platforms which enable job search and recruitment now, right? You know what I'm talking about. About 57 million resumes now. Host of people log onto the site every day. The site works for a lot of people, especially after the telecom wave, 3G, 4G, tier 2, tier 3 towns. A lot of influx of traffic and resumes, we observed. And now the challenge for us is to find jobs for those guys. Right. So it starts off back in the day where there were roughly about under 500 internet connections in the country. Right, and that's when the idea came about. This is what the website looked like back then. If you would see, snail mail has been given prominence because not many people had email back then. Right? It was all about jobs then. So we had like a sweatshop of 15 people, 20 people who were running, working on their computers, and every day we would get about 100 newspapers from the country, and a team would screen those newspapers, find jobs in them, and this team would then digitize those jobs, and we would upload them. It's very simple, right? That's how it started, right? And the idea was that, at a point in time, make every possible job that is out there to be had, make available to possible candidates. And the motto has changed dramatically since then, right? There were some people who would send us jobs by mail. And when I say mail, I mean mail, not email, right? And there would be guys who would, talk or, they would open those envelopes, see, oh, it's a job. They would hand it over to another team. They would say, okay, fine. And they would hand it to the team who decided. That's how it worked. The stack was fairly simple. I wish it was the same right now, but I don't know if anyone of you has heard about Cobalt Rack. Anyone? Any Neanderthals out there? Cobalt Rack used to be a hardware. It was a company, of course, which was taken over by Sun back later in the day. We ran Unix, HTTP 1.0, I think it was then, and HTML. Right, and some things have not changed. It was as simple as that. It was a purely static site. So what I've done was we've written a program. All these jobs would get digitized. I've written a parser and an aggregator which would convert these jobs into HTML pages and then would upload it. I don't know if any of you guys, well, I see some white hairs, so you've definitely seen the dial-up days, where dial-up connections would break and it would be agonizingly, excruciatingly difficult to get back online for some reason. And then the story changed because everybody in the world, including the Yahoos, were challenged because Alta Vista, Google, and everybody was coming in with search. Until then, Yahoo was a browse company, and so were we, right? All our focus was give an entire listing, and people can go through a hierarchical traversing to find what they're looking for. And being on a static site, it was difficult. Technology now is very simple, right? All of the stuff is off the shelf. It wasn't there. So we launched search. See this box here, job location. Yeah. Not proud of these designs, but yeah, we were ready with search because the world was moving towards it, right? We were still on our shared space server. We started with a 20 MB server. Now we had 40 MB, which was huge. Like wow. Stack, well, changed a little bit. Linux, HTTP server, HTML was still there. And there was something called Swish E. It was Swish earlier on, but later on it became Swish Enhanced, which was like a simple web indexing system for humans, right? Basically, you feed it anything, PDF, HTML, text, your whole directory structures. It will create, based on regular expressions and patterns, an index, basically an inverted index, for you to be able to search. And well, we were search ready therefore. And then we said, okay, we need to have much more refreshed, consistent information, because the site would be updated like once a day. If you have very good connectivity, twice a day. But then things are moving towards more updated needs, right? Well, I posted my job, but I can't see on the site. Okay, fine, we'll have to figure that out then. So we did that, right? And the stack changed, right? We had C++ coming into the foray, right? Because we needed something which was dynamic. You feed it new content, it is running at that point in time. CGI dot Perl module. Most people know it as CGI bin directory, which is now, how do I put it? Which is now like the vestigial organ, right? In your directory structure in Linux. And FoxPro. I don't know if you guys have heard about FoxPro, right? But FoxPro was a Windows product, and you were running it on Linux. Right? Because what we did was we took all the FoxPro data, which these guys were digitized from jobs, and we were storing it as flat files, and I've written some C++ libraries to make a B3 index out of it and feed on it. I don't know if you guys have heard of Lex and Yak, but this is stuff which is used in compilers. You know, one is a parser and one is an analyzer. Right? And well, stuff like, you know, New Relic and stuff, you know, was not there, right? So we had to build our own instrumentation for logging, monitoring, and all that jazz, right? And we had one server, one whole server, right? Project group, and just to tell you, you know, because you can still do Lex is now called Flex, and some of the machines, Linux or Macs, you will find it. And so is the Yak, you know. So my favorite command back in the day was stop, start, iostat, vmstat, right? Believe me, that still works. And couple it with PS, AUX, and pipe, and Z, and all, and you're home. So that has not changed. But, well, you know, we did not have a lot of stuff off the shelf then, so we wrote all of it ourselves. You know. It was crazy. Well, then life became simpler, or did it? You know, PHP MySQL came in. You know, it was like, wow, it's simple. We don't have to write your shitty C++ code, which only you understand, and things like that. You know. But it was not easy, right? Because PHP and MySQL were very, very new, very raw. It was like crash and burn, crash and burn, crash and burn, and then you get it right. You know, and I hated it because I was coming from an OOPS paradigm, and here is PHP, which is so unforgiving. Right? Write whatever you want. The user will tell you it's not right. You know, and obviously there was no concept of what do you call QA testing, right? There wasn't. You know, so life has come a full circle for me at least, because I was a full stack guy then, and full stack guys are back in demand now, right? Full stack plus DevOps, whatever you have. You were doing all of that without the names, which are fancy these days, right? You would write code, you would test it out, you would debug it, you would make it live, you would observe it on the servers, you would monitor it, and something's wrong, you go fix it again, right? And you also take calls from the clients. Yeah, I'm going to fix it, give me 5 minutes. Right? And that used to happen, you know. We had written the C++ libraries, which was feeding on Fox profiles, and the index was really, very sort of, you know, unstable. So we'd get clients from users and say, you know what, I'm looking at my CV, but it's not my CV. It's somebody else's CV. Can't imagine that in GDPR days now. But it used to happen, and the users were so forgiving. So give us 5 minutes, let's figure it out. And I would, you know, we then actually written a script which would rehash the entire B tree all over again, because, well, the indexes go corrupt for whatever reason, thanks to Fox. And that, you know, the indexing was sorted. And we'll call back and say, can you see your CV now? Yes, I can, thank you. Right? As simple as that, right? Multiple touch points. Yeah. So it was really chaotic then, because, well, the tech space was not hustling and bustling with a lot of technology, a lot of people, a lot of communities driving things and change. Events like these were like, you know, not possible at all. There were a handful of people in the country who were doing this stuff. And we had launched a product, and we were charging for it, right? The database search. And when you charge for something, well, India is a country where the users will hold your neck in no time if it is not working. You know, that started happening because, well, you know, we were on an unstable platform. We were running on constraints. I think at this time we had about 5, 7, maybe 10 servers. We were running a full text search on MySQL. I don't know if you guys know, but MySQL had a full text search back in the day with proper PDF, IDF in place. And you know, it was working, but it was not working, you know, because you will never know when it stopped working. We hit a number of about 10 lakh CVs, and it started crashing out, right, for no reason. And all we had to do is, just like a Lambda scooter, restart it, and it would get back up again for no reason. It was like a Windows machine, and I hated it because you don't want a Linux machine to behave like a Windows machine back in the day. And there was competition, of course, right? So I figured out this framework / platform called Lucene. I don't know if you've heard of it. Yeah. Right? It is now known as Solr for most people, or Elasticsearch in a much more evolved fashion, but the core is still duck cuttings, Lucene. And I was figuring out, let's move to Java or something, and we were writing the search in Java. Actually, it was crazy because I'd taken time for a month and a half from my CEO Sanjeev and said, okay, take your time, 1 month. And then the whole search, and I reached out to a bunch of proprietary guys because he asked me to, against my grain. I reached out to MySQL, SQL Server guys, Microsoft, DB2. They had something called Omnifind or Masala, codename Masala, which was supposed to be a text-based search engine. Didn't work well. So we were working on this whole prototype of doing search on Java, and I found Lucene, and there were like 5 or 6 sites in the world using it. And I stepped over it for like an hour and said, let's do it. And we did that. And to this day, we have now we're moving to Elastic because, well, everybody wants to do Elastic. But until this day, Lucene is supported as well. We've customized and transformed it completely to our needs. So the code is 30-40% Lucene, everything else is built around to cater to our needs for all our searches. And that works well. And I had to do that because, well, we were nearing the IPO and the search was crashing. And we had to figure out something. So we stitched it up in a week. And we also realized that, for our business, search is core. At that point, and there was like an epiphany because, we realized, well, the demand-supply equation is not going to get better in India, right? More people, less jobs, okay. You look at any which ways, there's a demand-supply imbalance. And therefore, search has to work really, really well. And it was the core for our business, for our platform, has to be search. And, we got to get it right. And we kept evolving the platform over and over and over again. That also meant getting our recommendations right. So, right now, if you see, everybody has moved or is moving, taking the transition from discovery to recommendations, right? You go to Netflix and they put you in a box. You watched an action movie last 3 days. Let me show you more action. Which is why they have 3 different logins. Right. So personalization is as a function of user behavior and recommendations based on that. So we're doing that. Job alerts, I know many of you will say, but I don't get regular job alerts. Well, you don't go look at your CV as often as you go watch a movie on Netflix. Therefore, so you don't change your CV very often, but we're constantly working on that. There's no problem over there. So we started working on recommendations, user profiling, segmentation, so on and so forth. We were doing data science, but we did not know it was called data science. We should have known it. It would have been a much sexier company, to talk about that. But it doesn't matter, right? So we did very simple and very complicated stuff depending on what we were solving. And the concept has not changed for us. We look at the problem first and not the solution. You know what I mean? Okay, I have Hadoop. What can I do with it? We didn't look at it like that. We always focus on the problem. And then you figure out what is the right solution for it. Some of the stuff that we've been doing, simple stuff, right? And there was a company whose MD had to go to jail for a couple of days because somebody put something on the site which was not good, and the platform had to take ownership. And my CEO came, how do we defend that? So let's figure it out. So we wrote a Bayesian algorithm which would figure out what is good content, bad content, as simple as that. And again, my inspiration always has been the Linux community, the Linux operating system. Given a choice, I would still use Mud. I don't know if you know Mud. what used to be a simple text-based mail client, right, with no paraphernalia, you know. And you use the keyboard. I hate the mouse. I still use Vim. Sorry, you know. You know. You know, in the Mutt client, you have an extension called BOGO filter, right? As simple as that, which would just tell you this email is spam, this email is not spam, which was the classic implementation of page network. Right? We picked that up, we looked at that, and we evolved that to a point where it is still being used. And it works very well. Of course, we have got ancillary filters algorithms to it also now, but that is the goal. Then looking at segments of users again. You know, at a certain experience in a certain industry, what kind of people are working, what are their aspirations, how they're applying, are they spamming the site or not? You know, because you know in India what people do is they go on the site, it was a Java programmer in Bangalore, I have to move to Bangalore, right? And then they look at that, how the match is formed, yippee, right? And they start carpet bombing. So how do you weed out that behavior? Started learning that. You know, a lot of people complain jobs that are not good, and they should complain. We started figuring out, tracking that user behavior. What's happening? You know, how many people are saying jobs alerts are being opened, viewed, applied to, or not. Right? So we started tracking all of that and looking at behaviors to fine-tune our algorithm. Then we launched something which was very, very successful with the recruiters and then the job seekers also, which is called view similar CVs and view similar jobs. Right? So we had the search product where people search for resumes, and we had view similar CVs. So if you're looking at a person and you're looking at a CV, and we'll say, you know what? Excuse me, we've got 10 more CVs like this, which is like so basic now, right? Collaborative filtering, you know, and so on. So we launched that, and we did not even know the word collaborative filtering, but we had that in place. So the stuff that we're doing right now is, you know, we've got tons of data, like, you know, several terabytes of data in place for user behavior across all platforms, Knockbridge, even Sargi, 998, and Chipset. And we're trying to interpret that. Okay. The concern I always have, you know, with personalization and customization, which we are trying to be very wary of, is that you don't end up tunneling a user, right? The whole concept of serendipity goes for a toss, chance discovery. That I will never get to see what I don't know about. You know, I will only get to see more of what I've liked or viewed, right? And that's, well, good or bad, because tomorrow if a product guy wants to do tech or vice versa, you know, just because he's not searching actively, he would never know that's possible, right? So what we're doing is we're trying to trace career paths for people. We've got 57 million resumes. We're trying to see where people are, you know, in their journeys and how they started off and where they are right now. And then we could tell people, you know, if you upskill yourself or if you want to get to this salary, these are the ways to go about it. Because people like you have followed career therapies in this fashion. Does that make sense? Yeah. And it's very difficult for people. You know, I'm sitting here. I'm just frustrated. You know, that I want to leave my organization for various reasons. You know, and what I do is I latch on to the next job. I will not even think about what are possibilities. So what if there was a platform which offers you these possibilities, and it's really, really, you know, course right now. We're trying to improve upon it. Where, you know, you just tell me who you are. And we know, by the way, when you log in. And we'll tell you the possibilities, you know. We'll show you these possible branches. We call that a knowledge graph or something. You know, where you can figure out what are the trajectories you can follow in your career and where would you potentially end up. Disclaimer being that you're performing well. April just went by, right? So that is some of the stuff that we continue to do in data science now. We've got a solid team of about 15 people who are working actively. We acquired a company called Make Sense. Because we're in the process of building ontologies. Because, you know, when you talk about skills, you take the example of this Java again, right? Java, Just because the guy knows Java doesn't mean he's really great at Java. So how do you validate and figure out just through a resume that a person is good in Java? It's very difficult, right? Because the resume is a marketing document, isn't it? Right? We all show our professional best in the resume, right? And the job of a recruiter is to ensure that they cut through all of that marketing gimmicks and tell who the real guy is. And that's what the platform is trying to do now. What we call the two-way match, right? On Netflix or something like that, I mean, the movie doesn't care who you are, right? But here, as a job seeker, when you apply, the recruiter cares. As a recruiter, when you contact a job seeker, the job seeker cares. So we need to have that intersection in place, right? And it's becoming much more crucial now because, well, a lot of people just do clickbaits, right? They're very common, and that's happening in jobs also, right? They write about jobs, which tell you very lucrative things, and essentially what they're doing is they're building databases. So how do you recognize a real recruiter from not so real recruiter? How do you figure out which managers go for which person, and vice versa? We're doing a lot of work in that area, you know. And you know, we deployed the basic infrastructure needs, GPUs, you know, classifiers like random forest and so on, which are essentially pretty good for you to sort of figure out. We're trying out some of the stuff in DNN, which will help us out. So essentially, what has always happened for us and continues to be in some paradigm is that you focused on scaling up things, right? And there are a bunch of reasons why you need to scale, right? You know, we've been always frugal, you know, because, and that's how we made money and did not take any investment except for the one in 2001, I think. That's all. The user base kept on growing, so did data, because of this whole complexity of what is now called data science, algorithms, and so on and so forth. Well, the code became much more complex, and you were hitting bottlenecks every now and then. And we were running out of the US, you know, until 2 years back. And believe me when I say this, our network, back-end network speed was 10 Mbps until 2 years back. Right? And we were able to run all of this and much more, regardless of that. Like I said, constraints on infrastructure network. And obviously, you know, there's constantly, you know, your listed company, the expectations of the market, the users, the customers, you need to keep growing and evolving over a period of time. Right? And there's competition in the ecosystem, right? Tomorrow, once we wake up and say, okay, fine, Google has launched something on the mobile mode, and it's extremely fast. Google, for example, runs thousands of servers. You know, I have not, for my entire set of platforms, reached more than 500 yet. Right? All of these sites. But the experience has changed. The user is not forgiving. The user will not stay on your site if it is not working as well as the next guy, who's a guy from the US who's got deep pockets, great money, very successful, and so on and so forth. Right? So you got to be constantly sort of, you know, fighting against all of this. Yeah. So in a nutshell, that is how this whole thing went, and it's continuing. And we can talk more about that, you know, once it's done. What you know are the initiatives we're taking in these dimensions. So there are a bunch of learnings, some points that I have to share with you. So in the early days, what we're going to do is, as any guy in the engineering team, we used to hate product, we used to hate business. What rubbish, and you're changing this again. We just built it over the last 3 months, and you're saying it's not working. Don't you guys do your homework and stuff like that? You know, as if I'm not going to say the same thing about my code that I wrote 6 months back. You know, so resilience is not about being able to sustain change. It's also about being able to change when it is needed, and change fast and seamlessly and efficiently. Okay, right from infrastructure to my code base. And that is where a lot of the energy goes, right? One, in resisting change to the product, platform, features, and then to the complex interactivities in various code bases. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but moving to a non-API driven infrastructure to an API driven infrastructure was a pain. It was a pain, right? Because anybody you go to in the team, and we've got about 500 people in the engineering team now across the platforms. The one word that I dread is, anybody can take a guess? Legacy. A lot of legacy code. I don't know how to figure it out. Let me see, right? That is one trump card which everybody backs off from. All right, take your time. Don't break anything. All right, don't crash anything. But कितना time लगेगा फिर भी? How much time? And therefore refactoring is so undermined, so misunderstood that a lot of the times in the early days what we should do is the guys would come and say, we will have to rewrite, revamp this whole thing. It will take 6-7 months. Version 2.0, version 3.0. That's not going to happen every now and then. Right? You have to be able to change the tires of the car when it is moving. Right? And to be able to do that, you have to build mechanisms and vulnerabilities and anything else in the infrastructure layer that helps you do that. In my understanding, and you can add to it or subtract to it, but I don't think you can. The factors that affect the scalability paradigm are essentially change in data. I'm talking obviously to the higher side. Complexity of your programs and your softwares and your systems and your feature and platform, whatever you have. The number of transactions / users hitting the site, concurrency, and the ecosystem, So if you're at 30 MB data and it goes to 500 gigs, all of a sudden the problems change, right? I call this funnily bottleneck shiftitis, right? Because the bottlenecks change all of a sudden when any of these dimensions, observe data. Complexity. I mean, if you're needing an X amount of compute, all of a sudden you change the algorithm and the needs are all of a sudden very different, right? Same for concurrency. Same for ecosystem. When jQuery came in, everyone was like, "This is the panacea. We don't need to study and learn JavaScript anymore. All our problems have been solved, done and dusted." Okay, just implement jQuery, no matter how heavy it is. It's going to kill the users for download rates, but let's be happy with it. Eventually, we have to ditch it, right? Or just pick up parts of jQuery and implement it, right? Because it seems to go out over time, right? So if you get tied down to the framework, and the framework is not changing, or is changing very fast, like Angular, right? You have to be able to readily sort of change your systems and platforms accordingly. Thankfully, Java takes its time.
This food dynamic also is a problem, right?
Yeah.
Like Angular, like that. People do that Angular is trying out in 6 hours.
Absolutely, absolutely. And they will know what's wrong when something goes wrong. Yeah. This is very crucial and very undermined and very underrated. Own the development methodology. Right? Waterfall, Agile, Scrum, Kanban, they're all awesome philosophies. But in the end, if you're not owning this, right, to somebody else's, what? Because ultimately you're building the product. It is not an assembly line, right? The biggest problem that happens is when you believe it's an assembly line, well, the product guys did not get the specs right, or the client or the business guy in your case, in some cases. Well, then, question them at that point in time, not later on. How will you fail fast and early if you're not questioning what is being built, why it is being built? If you don't understand the why, the whole specifics and the dynamics of the business, essentially you don't know what you're doing. You just care about what you're building, okay? But you don't know why, right? And that is where a lot of people go wrong. They don't question the why. The other challenge is that people gun for productivity, which is great, but at the other you gun for effectiveness. How effective are you as what role you are in? Not productive. Number of hours, number of lines of code. We are doing CI/CD. Okay, we release 30 times a week. More power to you, but what that means, we should understand the essence of that. Maybe we should just release 5 times a week, right? How many of them are being rolled back, and why? So therefore, there's a whole lot of conversation, in a lot of areas, and a lot of people do that about developer productivity, teams productivity. I've got 100 people. I don't know what they're building. They're building a lot of stuff, but I can't see the impact. Some of people sort of have that conversation. The only answer is that it doesn't matter. The question is, what do you want built, and why, and work backwards from that. Right? Because what happens, especially when the teams become bigger, that they want to stay engaged, right? If you don't give the right work, people will find work. This concept I call resume-driven development. Strict no. Have you tried Arc? Have you tried Scala? No, I haven't. मैं करता हूँ यार इस weekend. It needs to be on my resume, therefore we should try it out. Right? Fundamentally, skills can be acquired in a given finite time frame. You don't know R, you don't know Scala, you don't know Hadoop, you don't know Redis, whatever. Aerospy, Kafka. Oh, Kafka is the holy grail now, right? I am from the days where what is that? Java messaging, JMQ, right? JMQ. How different is it that? It isn't, right? But you want to do Kafka because, well, it's hot. And that is a problem. Because fundamentally, the concepts have not changed. Right? How and where you apply those concepts is what really matters. Right? I would be less impressed by a person who would say, I've done Kafka. Well, that's not rocket science, right? But if you understand the underlying concepts, why do I need a messaging queue? Why do I need to hash? Why do I need in-memory databases? Right? Where do I need them? What is the inflection point for an in-memory database to go back? How do you ensure persistence? Well, Aerospike does it all. Brilliant. Let's employ Aerospike. I'm just saying, right? At the conceptual level, there is no conversation happening. Because you just want to focus on adopting something new which is out there of the garage. So I'm not saying don't try it out. We've tried out everything. Anything and everything. Right from Mojai to whatever you have made. We've tried everything. But we did not use NoSQL at that point in time because it was not necessary for us. But we knew why we don't want to use NoSQL. Because MySQL is working. It is not a Delta phone. But now, because I have the compute, I have the on-demand infrastructure, I can use an NoSQL implementation for certain use cases and not, what do you call that?
So what are the use cases that you use?
So wherever you need only single seeks, right? Object seeks, or the compute is much more and you don't care about the storage and so on and so forth. Not many real-time systems use it. For a lot of processing, for analytical sort of reasons, we use it. For archiving, we use it.
So more kind of index system.
Yeah. In my view, influence is greater than control. Right? How many architects in the house? Yeah. You're not ICs. You're actually more in a leading space than a manager or a VP or whoever. Right? Because you influence, you lead, because people listen and understand why. Right? So if you believe that a designation will warrant you and ensure that people follow you and listen to you, that's not going to work, right? In our space, in our paradigm, you have to influence people on logical grounds, right? Why is the solution better? You have to have them involved in a conversation where you're talking about the problem-solution paradigm, right? And that is the problem. You can't just say this data set is not right. You have to have an argument why it is not right. And to support that argument, you have to have reasons. Right? For those reasons, you need to learn, study, work hard, all of those things. Right? So in my view, architects play a very, very crucial role. But the challenge is between the push and pull methodology. Right? The architects wait most of the time for people to come to solve their problem. And then they solve the problem. Okay, new project is coming, I'll help you out. Right? But you have to be constantly engaged with people to figure out what's happening to the current stack, what's happening to the current efficiency, deficiency, of what is inside and under the hood, and have those conversations with people, right? Especially the raw young people who join a new team. They are more moldable, they have less bias to history, and so on. Again, culture is bigger than tech, right? Because if you don't have the right culture, even if you may have the best of technologies, okay, they are in vain. How many of you wrote some code in the last 10 days? Nice. How many of you reviewed some code in the last 10 days? That's a lesser number. And that's the problem. Right. Code reviews are an exercise of judgment. Yeah. You are a bad coder. Thou shalt not code again. It has to be in pairs. You cannot sit in a corner and tell someone else your code sucks, because you're definitely, undoubtedly bound to get a counter argument why it doesn't and why your approach sucks. And maybe the next time the guy won't come to you. Maybe that's why you cease to review code also. It's too painful. I don't want to get in the exercise of telling a guy that he's wrong. But that's not the idea really. The idea is to find the right optimal path. Or cause friction. Car moves if there's optimal amount of friction. Less friction, it won't move, it will skate. More friction, it will not move anyway. Right? So you have to find that optimal resistance where you're able to sort of get the right solution out.
When you say tech culture is more than tech, what aspects of culture at Naukri?
So, yeah, sure. So for example, we have a common email where people write about anything, they feel about something, right? Right from an outage that happened last week, right from the choice of technology, right from issues in a certain code base, and then we get in a room and we talk about it. Not from the standpoint of judging who did that, who caused that mistake, but from the standpoint of figuring out what is the right way to do it. So a lot of those conversations are important, right? Otherwise, I put Aerospike, it's the best thing. Who are you to tell me? But if you have a conversation, one, doubts are getting cleared of the person who probably thought that, this is not the right choice. Two, the person gets a lot more understanding what the other guy is doing. Because as the team expands, what happens is, people start sitting on islands, and they become departments in their own, right? And then the conversations are more or less about the way data exchange happens in those applications or islands, and that is bad because then it's very transactional, right? Until you know the innards and the motivations of some team, it's not going to happen. Cross-pollination is very, very crucial. Cross-pollination happens when conversations happen, when dialogue happens about things. You have to be very, very open about the fact that, whoever I talk to will not judge, right? My choices, my approaches, my code, right? And also, there is no right answer, right solution. We have teams in Naukri which follow a certain methodology of, Agile. Some people don't follow Agile, some follow an integrated waterfall model which looks like agile, whatever, but we don't question them because, well, the idea is to offer an autonomy and to ensure these teams achieve what they set out for, right? And that's what I mean about it, because if you focus only on the fact that, look, this is how it is to be done, all applications from tomorrow on will respect this Git hook. I know 20 guys I know that I talk about a Git hook will say, go to hell. I'll write a way to bypass it. Comes a guy who says, you know what, hey, we're not checking cytogenetic complexity, it's very important. Well, let's talk more about it. Why do you think it's important? Just throwing in a hook to check that is not going to help. It's like saying, we will tomorrow put a red light here. Doesn't mean people will respect it. Right? Not in India for sure. So this is also an interesting thing, right? What is done? This is done.